Memphis is one of those cities that surprises people. And on paper, it checks a lot of boxes: affordability, food, culture, history, and character. But what catches people off guard is that Memphis can feel completely different depending on where and how you live. Two people can move here and have totally opposite experiences. One person falls in love with the city, and the other wonders why they even moved here. And usually it comes down to understanding the lifestyle before you get here. Because Memphis really isn't a plug and play kind of city. It has its own personality, its own rhythm, and its own way of doing things that can feel very different depending on where you're coming from. Not necessarily in a bad way, but definitely in a way that requires some adjustment. So if you're thinking about moving to Memphis in 2026, this is the side of the city that you need to understand first. Because today I'm breaking down 8 real life factors you'll want to be comfortable with if you're planning to live here and actually enjoy it long term. Let's get into it. Hey, I'm Jen Carstensen. I'm a local real estate expert right here in Memphis, Tennessee. My team, the Live Love Memphis group, we've been helping people relocate here since 2008. After working with hundreds of buyers over the years, I can tell you this with confidence. The people who end up loving Memphis are usually the ones who take the time to understand it before they move. Not just the highlights, but how the city actually feels on a daily basis. Because Memphis will give you a lot, but it also asks you to adjust in ways that might not be obvious at first. And the biggest reason for that is because everything here is connected. Where you live affects how you drive. How you drive affects your routine, and your routine affects your lifestyle. So let's start with the one decision that influences everything else. Let's start with this because really it sets the tone for everything else. Memphis is a city where location matters a lot more than most people expect. And what I mean by that is your day-to-day experience can feel completely different depending on where you land. Not just slightly different, but almost like you're living in a different version of the city. There are neighborhoods that feel quiet, established, and very community-driven. You'll see people out walking in the evenings, kids playing outside, neighbors waving at each other, and then just a short drive away, you might find areas that feel a little more transitional, where you may need to be a little more aware of your surroundings. And this is where a lot of people get caught off guard. Because if you're moving from a place where most neighborhoods feel pretty consistent across the board, Memphis doesn't always work that way. There's more variation here, and that means more decision making on your part. It's not just about price or square footage. It's about your daily drive, your comfort level, your lifestyle, even the kind of routine you want to have. For example, someone moving here for the first time may see 2 homes online that are priced similarly, but the actual lifestyle attached to those homes could feel completely different. One area may feel more suburban and family oriented with newer development and easier access to shopping and schools. And another area may feel more historically charming and have a lot more character, but a completely different pace and environment. That's why working with someone who actually understands the layout of Memphis matters so much. Because this isn't a city where you want to choose a location based on price alone. Like, not at all. Because being 10 minutes in one direction versus another can completely change how you feel, how convenient your errands are, how much you actually enjoy being home. And the locals understand this. They figure out, okay, this is my pocket, this is where I feel comfortable. But when people move here without really understanding the layout first, that's usually when things start feeling like they just don't click. So more than anything, success in Memphis comes down to being intentional from the very beginning. Because when you choose the right area for you, Memphis has a completely different experience, and in a good way, including how you experience something as simple but as important as weather. Now let's talk about something you'll notice pretty quickly. That's the weather. And Memphis summers just don't show up. They settle in. We're talking about long stretches where heat sticks around day after day. It's not just the temperature, it's the humidity. That's the part people underestimate because it's not just hot, it feels heavy, like you're wearing a rucksack. You step outside and within minutes you feel it. Seconds, actually. Your clothes, your skin, it's just a different type of heat than dry climates. If you're moving from somewhere like California, Colorado, or even parts of the Northeast, the humidity can feel shocking at first. You walk outside in July and it feels like the air is just wrapped around you. Your car is blasting AC before you even back out of the driveway. And in the evenings, it can still feel warm and thick in the air. So naturally, this starts shaping how people live their lives. You'll notice locals adjusting their routines without even thinking about it. Errands happen earlier in the day, outdoor activities shift to mornings or evenings. Midday becomes more about staying cool indoors, and over time, that just becomes normal. But if you're moving from somewhere with mild summers or dry heat, this can easily be one of the biggest lifestyle adjustments you make. Now, the upside is winters here are generally short and pretty mild. You're not dealing with months of snow or freezing temperatures, so it really comes down to preference. Would you rather deal with longer summers or longer winters? Because in Memphis, summer is definitely the season that takes center stage. And once your routines start shifting around the weather, the next thing you'll notice is how you actually get around the city every day. And once you settle into the rhythm of the city, this becomes very clear very quickly. Memphis is a driving city. Your car isn't just transportation here, it's part of your daily lifestyle. Almost everything you do involves getting in the car, going to work, picking up groceries, meeting friends. So if you're used to walking everywhere or hopping on trains and subways, this will feel like a big shift. Now, the good news is that you're not dealing with extreme traffic like larger metro areas. You're not sitting in bumper to bumper traffic for hours every day, but the trade-off is distance. Things are spread out, and what looks close on a map can turn into a 15-25 minute drive, depending on where you are. And here's where this really matters. Your location just doesn't affect your home, it affects your entire day. Because small differences in distance add up over time. That extra 10 or 15 minutes each day, that turns into hours every week. So the people who enjoy living here the most are the ones that usually plan for that. They think about where they work, where they shop, where they spend their free time. I have to tell you something else too. North, south, east, and west really matters when the sun sets in the west and you're driving home every day, western facing. Some people I've known in Memphis, because there's not a big landscape, they'll actually choose to live west and drive home facing east so the sun is not in their face. And for anybody that's local to Memphis, you know that afternoon commute when the sun is directly in your face is completely a nightmare. But another part of understanding Memphis is understanding the reputation that comes with it. Now, obviously, one of the biggest things people ask about Memphis is safety. And the truth is, Memphis has dealt with crime challenges for years. I've lived here since the 90s. It's always been an issue. But that's not something locals ignore or pretend doesn't exist. But what's important to understand is that Memphis is extremely neighborhood specific. Your experience living here can vary dramatically depending on where you live, where you spend your time, how intentional you are about your location. Most people enjoy living here long term have just simply learned the city. They know the areas that fit their comfort level, their lifestyle, and their daily routine. And honestly, that goes back to why location matters so much here. Because when people move to Memphis without understanding the layout of the city first, that's usually when expectations and reality just don't line up. The people who tend to love Memphis are the people who understand both sides of it. They appreciate the affordability, the culture, the food, the music, and the history, while also being realistic and intentional about where and how they live. And once you understand that balance, Memphis starts making a lot more sense. Now, if you're seriously considering a move to Memphis and you want a deeper breakdown of neighborhoods, commute times, price ranges, and just what your lifestyle would actually look like here, we've put together a free relocation guide that walks you through all of it. You can grab it in the description or scan the QR code on your screen. It's the same guide I give my clients. It's completely free. So go check it out and I'll be right here. Now, let's zoom out a bit and talk about careers and the job market. Memphis has a solid economic foundation. It's a major logistics hub, largely because FedEx is headquartered here, but healthcare is also a huge part of the local economy, especially around the medical district. Education, transportation, and distribution all play major roles here as well. So there's definitely lots of opportunities here, but the market is a little bit more focused compared to larger, more diversified cities. So what does that mean for you? It means having a plan makes a big difference. A lot of successful relocations fall into a few common categories. People who already have a job lined up, people transferring within a company, or people working remotely. If you're planning to move first and figure out things afterwards, it's definitely possible, but it usually requires a little more research and a little more patience. Because while the cost of living can be lower in certain areas, the salaries can reflect that as well. So it's not just about what things cost, it's about how that lines up with what you're earning. And when these two things align, Memphis can actually feel very comfortable financially. From there, it's the smaller everyday details that start standing out. So here's something that doesn't always come in conversations, but you'll probably notice it once you're here. Seasonal allergies. Because of the mix of trees and grass and the regional climate, pollen levels can get pretty intense during certain times of the year. And for some people, it's no big deal. but for others, it becomes something you actively manage, especially during peak seasons. So that might mean keeping windows closed more often, running air purifiers, or just paying more attention to pollen levels day to day. And what catches people off guard is that even if you've never really dealt with allergies before, you might notice them here. The good news is that most locals figure it out pretty quickly, and that works for them. It just becomes like part of the routine, kind of like checking the weather before heading out. And speaking of weather, while most days are pretty typical, Memphis weather does have a tendency to shift quickly, sometimes faster than people expect. You can start your day with sunshine and blue skies, and by the afternoon, a storm rolls through with rain, wind, and darker skies. This happens way more often during spring and early summer. And for someone new to the area, that unpredictability can feel surprising at first. It's not that the weather is constantly extreme, but it's something people definitely stay aware of. You'll notice locals checking forecasts more regularly, planning their day around the weather, paying attention to storm alerts, and just generally being a little more prepared. In fact, many of the homes today have storm shelters. So simple things that you can do to be prepared for this would be keeping an umbrella in your car, watching the radar before outdoor plans, or having a backup for events. I mean, these things are going to become second nature if you move here. And over time, you stop thinking of it as unpredictable and start thinking of it as part of the rhythm of living here. You adjust, you wait out the storm, and move on with your life. But once you adapt to it, it just becomes normal. And as you start exploring more of Memphis, you'll notice something else. This city has history, and it shows in the architecture, in the streets, in the neighborhoods. It's part of the identity of Memphis. Some areas feel polished and newly developed, and others still reflect that older, established character. And for a lot of people, that's actually a positive. It gives Memphis a sense of authenticity that newer cities sometimes lack. There's definitely character here. There's personality, there's history, there's a lot of fun. But if you're coming from a place where everything feels brand new and uniform, it can take a little time to adjust to the contrast, because Memphis just feels lived in. And depending on what you value, that can either feel incredibly charming or very different than what you're used to. And when you put all of this together, your location, your routine, your pace of life, this is really what it all leads to. Memphis moves at its own pace. It's not trying to be the fastest growing city or the most polished city in America. It's comfortable being itself. There's a laid-back feel to daily life here. People are generally friendly, and interactions just feel more personal. And there's a strong sense of local identity. Another thing people notice after moving here is that Memphis feels very local. A lot of people were born and raised here in this area, and many families have been here for generations. So unlike some fast-growing cities, Memphis already has a very established culture and community feel. And honestly, for a lot of people, that's exactly what makes Memphis appealing. It feels real. But depending on what you're used to, it might take some time to settle into that rhythm. You may have to put a little more effort into finding your people, your routines, and your favorite spots around the city. But once you do, it tends to feel very natural. So here's the honest perspective. Living in Memphis in 2026 is not about perfection. It's about understanding the lifestyle. You'll adjust to the weather, you'll rely on your car, you'll plan your location carefully, and you'll learn how the city flows. But in return, you're getting affordability, culture, history, food, and a lifestyle that feels accessible compared to many other cities. Memphis isn't perfect, but honestly, no city is. The difference is that Memphis has personality. It has strengths, it has challenges, it has a very distinct way of life that isn't for everyone. But for the right person, Memphis can offer a lifestyle that's becoming harder and harder to find in a lot of cities today. We have more space, more affordability, more character, and a pace of life that still feels human. The key is understanding what you're walking into before you make the move. So the real question is, does Memphis fit the life you want to build? If you're thinking about making Memphis home and you want to help figuring out exactly where you should be looking based on your lifestyle, your budget, and your goals, my team and I would love to help. Start with that free relocation guide. It's in the description and the QR code is on your screen. If this video helped you, hit that like button. It really does make a difference. Subscribe and tap the bell so you don't miss what's coming next. And if you've got questions, drop them in the comments. I read every single one. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you in the next video.